Welcome everybody, and thank you so much for coming today. I really appreciate some of the energy that came out of our select board meeting and realizing that this would be a really important forum and opportunity to talk with those of you who are so affiliated with the Austine School. And so,
what is your name?
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, thank you. My name's Chloe. I'm the executive director of the Winston Prouty Center, and have been with the Prouty Center since 2007. So long time, and really happy to be here. Actually, my kids went to Prouty on Oak Street, and then we moved to Living Memorial Park, the old Christian Heritage School, and then I got to be director. And so I've actually been affiliated with Winston Prouty for about 22 years because my oldest kid's 21. So, so thank you. Sorry, I should have said my name. So I realized how important, we've talked a lot about, as we've been on the campus, how important it is to talk early and often about what's happening here. And so, you know, the energy around being able to talk to folks who have a history with this place is really important and special to me. So thank you for coming. And I look forward to sharing this with you and to hearing from you, because our intention is to really, you know, this is not just our place, it's the community's place. So I'm going to talk about, I'll go through the presentation, and some of you may have seen it. I'll try to not be too repetitive, but I'll go through it, maybe take 20 minutes or so, and let's wait for questions and comments till the end, if that's okay, but certainly wide open to any of those. So I'm going to give a little history, sort of how we got here, what we're thinking, and then we'll go from there. So Winston Prouty bought the campus in 2016. So you know that Austine closed in the summer of 2014. And about a year and a half later, we bought it and we moved here in July of 2016 after we renovated some of the space in this building. And our idea had been, we didn't need a whole big campus, obviously, but we knew that we did need to expand our space, and we knew that this was here, and frankly, the price tag on our expansion was getting to be close to the cost of what it would be to buy the campus. So we thought, well, this place is beautiful. It needs a steward of the land, or it's going to sit here, and who knows what's going to happen to it, and we can take that on. And we thought, we'll move here, and we'll own our building, and then maybe we'll sell the other buildings, and we'll create sort of a condominium association. That had been our original idea. And that didn't really, that's not what happened. So as we got here, we thought there's so much potential. So in 2019, we brought community members in to talk about how can we make this work and what does our community need. We knew that we would lose money because it's a big campus and it's old, and it takes a lot of money to fix up the buildings, and the elevator breaks and the roof leaks, and you know, so we are losing money, and but we think it's still a viable option. So we brought people in to say, how can we make it work? And so we put together a campus plan, and we are actually doing that plan. We're upgrading some of the building systems. We've leased most of the space, so we've made a lot of progress on that plan. In the process, that's when we connected with the Delta campus. So immediately to the south is 130 acres owned by Bob Johnson, where Omega Optical is. And they have had some of the same ideas that we have had that came out of our campus planning. So certainly you won't be surprised, housing and recreation and sort of sustainability and keeping the land beautiful were some of the things that emerged. Like whatever happens here, you know, honoring this place that way. So we connected with Delta, and you might not be able to read all of that, but we realized we had some of the same values, frankly, around a place to live, work, and play, and make it a place to belong into the future. And so, you know, they have focused a little bit more on jobs and workforce. Commonwealth Dairy is there. It's not actually part of the campus anymore, but I think that they've had this vision of building workforce housing and attracting employers to the region. And so it aligned with some of what our values were.
So, Chloe, real quick.
Yes.
Can you give us time to read the slides before you go through?
Yeah.
That'd be great, just to make sure we can capture that, because we can't split our vision to see the interpreter and the actual PowerPoint.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that.
And so I probably should have done printouts. We could try to print it out quickly. Would that be helpful? Or should we just carry on?
Later.
Later, okay. Okay, great. I will go more slowly. Again, this connection with the Delta campus, it's not, it's just a memorandum of understanding. There's no formal relationship. It's just an agreement to work together and maybe think about development and alignment, because the place where we are is it's an interesting spot in our region that connects a lot of different areas, which we'll look at a map for. So, can I move on? So these are the lists of sort of some of our priorities that emerged with the campus planning. And really, I think the thing I will highlight here a lot is one of our foundational values or core values at Prouty is inclusion. So Winston Prouty was one of the first preschools in the country for children with disabilities. That's the origins of where we came from, and that sort of continues in our work today, that we believe everybody belongs. And so whatever we do here, that value is going to inform, if there's housing here, it's for everybody in our community. If there's recreation, it should be accessible to everybody. So that's really important. Making sure that we're not duplicating what's already out there, and that we are, making sure to understand the landscape. So for instance, one of the ideas that came up with campus planning was there's not an indoor recreation facility here in our region, right? And so can we, and I know other people in the community have talked about that it doesn't need to happen here, but so we would want to make sure to coordinate those sorts of things. We don't want to, be isolated up here on the hill and do something that's also happening somewhere else. So really trying to, take what's here and make it work for our community. So I hope that makes sense. And then some of the ideas, again, recreation, indoor and outdoor, different kinds of homes, all kinds of homes, ownership, single family apartments, apartment buildings, like the whole continuum of housing is what we would really be thinking of. And places for people to gather, that's I think another value that's underlying what we want to do, is having spaces and places where people can connect, because we get so isolated, I think, in our modern world. So those are some of the principles that emerge that will inform whatever sort of moves forward. Not that they're non-negotiables, but I think being grounded in our values is going to really help us do this in a way that's responsible. Too much. You good? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Everybody okay? So this is where we are, and I have a handy little pointer. So this is the 180-acre lot that are the campus here. This is Delta campus down here. So Route 5 leaving town. And so you can see that this property is connected to Guilford, West Brattleboro, and Canal Street, and close to sort of the hospital and grocery store and school. So it's sort of a connecting place in this region and it's unusual to have this much land in one place that could be used to benefit our community. So I think that vision of how could we take this space and as it says, create a neighborhood. Like, what would that look like? So that's sort of a framing question. So these are this sort of says what I just said, but I want to emphasize diverse housing. One of the things that I'm learning is when people build housing, there are silos and funding around how that happens. And that makes it hard to create housing that everybody can live in. So the whole continuum of affordable to workforce to market rate is really everybody, and all kinds of people, families with kids, single people, elders, people with disabilities, anybody who's in our community should get to live here. So that's, I think one of the things that is really exciting is because it's connected to sidewalks and roads, you could actually, if you think about it, if you could work at the hospital and maybe take your bike over and get lunch at the Guilford store and then stop off at your house in the woods and feed your pet and then go back to work. That's the kind of thing of how it can be walkable, bikeable, and again, thinking for the future, building for the future. And then also thinking about workforce. So the challenge around what's the major problem we have? Are there enough jobs? And even if you hire people, there's no housing. And I think that's chicken and egg. I think housing is probably the most fundamental thing we need. And then that could attract employers and jobs. So just so you get a sense of who is helping us on this project, Chris Campy is the director of the Wyndham Regional Commission. They're sort of in charge of this region and planning around it and land use. Sue Fillion is the planner for the town of Brattleboro. Adam Hubbard's a landscape architect. Myself, David McManus represents Delta, Vermont, and Bob Johnson. Jennifer Stromston's at Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation. She is probably one of the smartest people I know about housing and how to make it work. Mark Westa is another landscape architect. Alex Wilson, Building Green is about sustainable building, and then Lisa. So right now that's who it is, and I imagine as we go forward that we will keep adding to the list of people who can help us, because we can't do it by ourselves, for sure. Here are some of the things we've done. So we formed the initiative, we, in November, were notified that we received a planning grant to look at water and sewer infrastructure. So if we build housing here, we need more, the water pressure to be better. I don't know if you've ever been on the 4th floor of Holton Hall and tried to flush the toilet, and then it takes forever to fill back up. So we need to, build out that infrastructure. So we're still waiting for that to happen. We keep looking for money. So our senators and Congressman Welch, they have earmarked money that they can put in the budget, so we've applied to that. There's, I'm not holding my breath, but at least we're getting the word out about what we want to do. And this would be for planning, looking at infrastructure, maybe starting to build, doing some permitting, that sort of thing. And then one of the really fun things we did was have a design competition for students in a landscape architecture program at the University of Connecticut, just to have them sort of give us ideas for what could happen here. You have 300 acres. Here's some of the things we want to accomplish: a place to live, work, and play, a place for everyone to live, work, and play. What would you make it look like? And I think that was just to get us thinking about what would we do with this land, and sort of dreaming. So I'm going to show you a few pictures from that. So actually there were two different schools. One was the University of Southern Maine, and these are just ideas, just going to keep saying that. So for instance, if this is Holton Hall, maybe there are other apartment buildings and an indoor recreation facility. You might have different kinds of housing throughout the woods, like tiny houses, there's a lot of ledge, it's very steep, so it could be that, this kind of housing would exist. There's a spot over where a lot of the logging happened off of Maple Street. I don't know if you can imagine that, but it's sort of flat up there. So, you might have some apartment buildings and then some condominiums. So just these, ways of opening up our brains to think about what could it look like. And it was really, really helpful and interesting. I think we all liked this one a lot. Again, just a concept, but this is the whole parcel. So Delta and Winston Prouty. And look how much green space is preserved. So this student sort of, put some, lots of housing in one space over here, left the trails, and then, sort of, I think, really, I don't know if the idea of big house, little house, back house, barn, like that in New England, how housing can be connected and look like, all one house. She sort of had some really interesting designs. So, different ways of thinking about the other. I think a lot of people were intrigued by the camp and the cabins, and we have been renting them. And so maybe we keep doing that. Maybe there's a need for people who come visit Vermont, or for families who come visit their families who live here. So lots of different ideas like that. I think I picked this one, and it's probably a little bit hard to see. But this was a student who focused, I think, a little more on Delta. So this is the detail of, you maybe have a parking garage, some residents. Here, this is actually Commonwealth Dairy, and then maybe an indoor recreation facility. So again, compact development, but but still connected and keeping the woods. Again, just sort of ideas of how you might lay it out. One of the ideas that people brought up is pocket neighborhoods. So, you might be walking, there's lots of woods, and then suddenly you come across a little neighborhood in the woods that might, be around a central garden and sort of connected, but part of this bigger vision. So I think that's why I pulled out this picture. So you can see lots of dreaming. And then in the fall, the town of Brattleboro published their housing needs assessment study. So this was fall of 2021. And it says that right now we need 500 units of housing to just meet the demand right now. And that a lot of people are not living in Brattleboro, so people are commuting into town. And that the pandemic, I think, we're an aging state, people are retiring here, people are moving here because they can work remotely and it's beautiful. So that's putting pressure on our housing stock. And really, you can't move along the housing continuum if there's not, because the housing stock is so old. If you're in an apartment right now and you want to get your first starter home, there aren't really a lot. So you stay in your apartment, which means nobody can move into the apartment. We're not building new things. So again, what I'm learning, I think I said this earlier, is there's funding for affordable housing, low-income housing, and then people who have money can pay for market rate housing, and then there's the rest of us in the middle. And developing that kind of housing doesn't pencil out. It doesn't pay for itself. And part of the reason it doesn't pay for itself is because if you have to buy the land, and if you have to build the roads and the infrastructure, it just won't. It won't be affordable in the sense of housing that's affordable for all of us to live in. So. For private developers, they aren't going to look at it necessarily, or if they do, they're going to do something very different than what we're thinking of doing. And again, I think the lack of housing is a primary constraint on bringing employers in and having the kinds of jobs that we want, and that depresses our economic development. And I think economic development is one of those phrases that's a buzzword, but I think of it as we want our community to thrive. We want people to live here, we want our schools to be good, and we want people to have what they need to thrive. And so some of that is related to housing, jobs, and bringing money into the region. So I think from that study, we really felt like getting housing is the critical piece to be looking at, and what can we contribute to that solution, being part of that solution. I'm going to quickly show, is it okay if I move on from this slide? Yeah? Okay. So as part of this process, we realized, again, Delta Campus has been talking about this for a long time. And that's a picture, an aerial view. Again, the big white building, this is Commonwealth. There's one other building, Omega Optical. But they've been talking about this a while. They have a master plan for adding housing. And it looks like this. So, this is where Commonwealth is, and then and Omega, and they're talking about going up into the woods and building housing around here. And so our property is right around here. That trail that connects us comes in right about there. So they've done some of this work actually. And so we started thinking about what we have to catch up to them a little bit. It was great to see the student ideas, but let's put pencil to paper a little bit more and think, what would it really look like? Here's our campus. I'm sure you recognize lots of the buildings. So here's Kroker Hall, the lower part of Kroker Hall, the gym, what's now Thomas Hall, West Vermont Hall, Holton. So that's what it looks like right now. The main part of the campus is about 27 acres, just so you know. That's where the soccer fields and everything are. And when you started thinking about it, in the same way that Delta's, it's a really lovely idea to go out into the woods and build housing, maybe, but it's really expensive. And so actually one of the calculations that started us thinking about compact development, so really focusing on the campus, the main part of the campus, it costs about $800 to build a foot of road a foot, just a foot of road, $800. And that's assuming you don't hit ledge or anything. Super expensive. So if we think about, what if we look primarily on this part of the campus, what are the benefits of that? It preserves a lot of the woods. It decreases costs because the infrastructure's here. And I think actually will help people stay connected. So like, I think those pocket neighborhoods are good ideas. They could also not sort of meet our goal of wanting people to be connected and build the neighborhood and find, the benefits of living sort of around other people and knowing your neighbors. So I'm going to emphasize again, this is an idea and it's the idea of what would you do with this main part of the campus. So conceptual, this is not written in stone. So here's the drawing of those buildings that we just looked at. Hopefully you can recognize what everything is. And these drawings are actually done by Mark Westa, who is the landscape architect on the advisory committee. And conceptual means, is this even possible? We don't know. Like, could you actually do this? So the first step he thought of was, what if you take away Kroker Hall? Not that you would take away all the amenities of it. You might put a gym somewhere else. You might do something. But what if that big building? It takes up a lot of space, and frankly, it's a tricky building. The heating systems are old. It's expensive. Maybe you don't need to keep that building. And then that would open up space to maybe add some buildings that would allow housing density, apartments, and sort of that look like Holton, right around Holton Hall. Like you could probably put up something that looked like what's already here, but offered housing, started to add to those units that we were looking for. And not everybody wants to live in an apartment or apartment building, so you might think about different ways of attached housing or condos or duplexes, again, renting, owning, all those options. And where might you put that on the campus and how would it look? So, for instance, here's something that probably is unlikely. Like down there at the gates, would it really be conducive to put up housing? I don't think so, but you never know. Or maybe it's, ledge allows for building into the hill. But so again, just the idea. I noticed recently that the maintenance garage building disappeared from this drawing, and we're not sure where the maintenance garage would go, but I think you get that, again, conceptual, just an idea. And then maybe you think about, well, we lost the gym if we took out Kroker, so maybe we want some indoor recreation down here. And we do need to think about parking, so maybe you put a parking garage in that has a garden on the roof, or more apartments on top, and then you sort of fill out more of the amenities that we would be looking for. And then I think what you see here, sort of a neighborhood over here where the president's house is, and you have to think about the road and the traffic. So really thinking about how would you do traffic flow, what would you do, and then finally, just this concept of here's what it could look like. Who knows? Sort of, it's like a town square, and there's a central hub of the campus, and people live here and can connect, and you make it, this drawing, I think he estimated, was like 300 units of housing without going out into the woods. That's really compelling when we have a need right now for 500 units of housing. And again, it's just an idea. I don't know if it would work. There are lots of constraints, but we don't need to build a lot more road. We just need to add some infrastructure. We need to find, ways people to invest in the idea. But it starts to seem a little more feasible when you see something like this. It did to me. It was very striking. I was like, oh, this is actually maybe possible to do. And that doesn't mean we wouldn't look eventually at the rest of the campus and think about, okay, maybe there are, homes out in the woods, or there are community gathering spots, or apartments at the top of the hill. I will say that one of the non-negotiables is that the hill is going to stay open, and the hill. That we're not going to suddenly build a bunch of apartments on the hill because they have the best view. I actually, I met an architect who attended the Learning Center in Framingham, and he visited here about 3 weeks ago, and he had come to Austine and played sports, and so he wanted to look around. And he shared that at the Learning Center in Framingham, they had also a beautiful hill, and that they put buildings on it. how sad that was. And I was like, well, that is not going to happen here. So, you know, I think that view from the top of the hill is the most compelling, beautiful view of Brattleboro and the West River Valley, so the Connecticut River Valley, actually. So we're going to keep it. But we might add some things in the woods that sort of, you know, again, meet the need of our community, honor the history of the land, and move us into the future in a way that's sustainable and helps us thrive. One more thing I want to point out is, so what is Delta Campus doing? If we sort of focus on our main campus info, what would we do? I think there's still a benefit of connecting with a road of some sort. That also has, again, this is about recreation a little bit too, a bike path, a walking path. And you know, I almost have a vision of no cars on the middle of campus if we can help it, and you have a golf cart or a scooter or a Segway, I don't know. But you know, ways that people can get transported and move back and forth between the land. It's not that far. I don't know how many people have walked from here over to the Delta campus. It's about a mile. So it's super close, it's beautiful, and can we make it more accessible? Really quickly, just to share, other people have done this kind of development. This was a former movie theater, drive-in movie theater in Colorado. They made into a community. There is a community outside of Atlanta, Georgia, that has been like intentionally developed around sort of, again, I would say creating neighborhood, and you can see sort of different kinds of housing and how in their master plan, and just how is it that we're not the only people doing this, and so I think that's good to know. And just interesting ideas from students who, again, the rooftop, I like this for the rooftop garden. I was imagining the parking garage could be that way, but you can see also housing built into the land, that you can do architecture in a way that works with the shape of the land, and that's exciting. Another community in Bainbridge, Washington, that seems interesting. So there's a lot to be inspired by, I would say, and to inform what we do. So here's where we are right now. We're waiting for approval to do the water sewer infrastructure study. Kind of thought it would be done already, but that's okay. We're looking for ways to do incremental development. So this isn't going to happen overnight, but could we start with one? If we have a master plan and we understand where we're going, can we start with one building? Can we have a few, you know, condos? What would be easy? What would be, it's not going to be easy. What would be a logical next step that could help us get some success? Because I think that success will build more success. Researching other projects, and then finding money. So, and partners who want to invest in this vision with us. I think that this will be a challenge. I think that there are people in our community and actually in other places that want to see this kind of thing happen. And so I'm hopeful that we will find people to join us and figure out how to make this work, how to finance it. And not, again, that when you build housing that is only for certain kinds of people and that's all, the only people who live there, that's not actually representing our community. So I really hope that we can figure out a way that it's not like, oh, all the old people live over there because we got money for old people housing. I'm being, I'm not trying to be flip. Or, all the people who don't have enough money to build a house are gonna live over there. I don't want that. I just want people to live in their neighborhood and for us to not to know one another because of that, not because of where we live or how much money we have or what we struggle with. So financing, I think, is going to be a tricky part of that. So here's some questions we've gotten before to try to answer them or preempt your questions. 100 to 500 units of housing, I think, between Delta and Prouty is not actually. It's not as, I think it's possible. So, start small, but know that we could go bigger. Delta will likely build their own housing. They have a whole construction part of what they do, and we will be looking for partners and have already talked to people who, might be able to help us. There's actually some very interesting work around prefabrication, so manufacturing that, happens off-site and then comes here and walls go up, and actually college campuses, there are dorms that just will go up in a week because all the fabrication has happened somewhere else. And the exciting thing about that to me is that could be a job we could create a production facility here to manufacture the houses that are going, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So we'll keep looking for partners. And again, I'm just gonna say all kinds of housing for all kinds of people, everybody. I think that's very ambitious. I get that it doesn't, I don't know if we, I think there are examples of it out and about, but it's really important that everybody can be here. And again, ambitious, but do I think we could do something, have some units online in a couple years? I think we could. Not 100, not 500, but do I think we could add to our housing stock in the next, if you go back to, imagining if one of those buildings if we decide to do like a town square around Holton, one of those buildings goes up, that might be, 30 units right there, or 50 units of housing. So I think it's possible to do something in the next couple of years. That's my hope. So I'm just going to end with that, my favorite view of the Connecticut River Valley, and really the vision of creating a place for people to live, work, and play that includes all of us and contributes to the overall vibrancy of our region and our longevity for making this place last into the future and work for everybody. So that is all I have. And I am open to questions and comments and whatever is on your minds, really, anything. I think, so if you have something you want to ask or say, to come up and say it so we can capture it on the video and everybody can hear and see it. Yeah, go ahead.
So you want me to say my name for posterity's sake?
That would be great.
All right. So I am Nicholas Lalaine, and I worked here at Austine, and this is a tremendous place. I wanted to say first, thank you, Chloe, for having this gathering and asking our community to come together. I appreciate your transparency about your plan and vision. Wow, this is a huge vision that you have, big undertaking. So I just want to make sure that specifically with this campus, something to keep in mind is, can we have a historical marker so that when people visit here, alumni or otherwise, know that this was Austine School for the Deaf? So can we have a plaque or something to that extent that remains regardless of how the development happens? Because people are going to want to come back and say, hey, this was my campus. And if that goes away and changes overnight and looks drastically different, without that historical marker, I think that's going to be difficult. So if you can add that, that would be great.
Great, yes. Thank you so much for that point, and I just want to say that is on our minds. When we first moved here, we wanted to change to Winston Prouty Way as the road, and the town didn't let us, and I'm so glad that they didn't let us. It will stay Austine Drive. The museum will always have a home here, and we will always figure that out, and I think a marker and a plaque is a great idea and easy to say yes to. So yes, that will absolutely happen. Thank you.
Yay. Everybody's thrilled about that.
Yes.
Hi. Thank you so much for having us here. So I should introduce myself. I am Jeanette Carr. So you can call me Janie if you want to, whatever your preference, JC, but Jeanette Carr. I lived here almost 13 years on this campus. I pretty much started here at a very young age and left when I was 16. So almost 13 years, this was my home. So to see this and the plan, wow, I have mixed feelings, I'm not gonna lie, to be quite honest. I'm sure a lot of people might feel the same as me, that this is hard to take in. And I think, honestly, it's a bit too much of a change. And that many units, I think it's a little overachieving. I think that maybe a few units would make sense, But that many, I'm not sure if it's feasible. And I know you said you're aiming for maybe 300, 500. How many was it that you're hoping for?
100 to 500 was the range.
Okay, yeah, that's a lot, it feels to me. Because like I think about where I live and where I've been the past 12 years, it feels great. And so I want to make sure people have that same experience. I live in Whitewood Junction. So 12 units where I live, that seems pretty decent, but it's also a lot. And so I want to make sure that, you know, even at 12 units, a building can seem ginormous. So I want to keep that in mind. And if we're building things here on that range of 100 to 500 units, it's going to be gargantuan and really large in size, and I'm not really thrilled about that. I don't think it will look good. I think it will harm the campus and the beauty of it. So I want to make sure beautification is still there. This campus means so much to us, and I don't want to see so many units, millions of feet tall, taking over, because I think it will destroy how everything looks. So that's my thought right now. But again, start with a few units, see how that goes, but I would say don't go to the 100, 300 range. Maybe less than 50 units, maybe 100 at max. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hello, I am Kathleen Achilles, and I was raised here. I graduated in 1988. I am currently helping out with the Austine Museum. We're still keeping it going. And I know this campus very well, like the back of my hand. I know that so many of us really care about this campus and the hill and the beautification, and we want to make sure that as many of the buildings can stay intact as much as possible. Thinking about the cabins up in the woods, I know those are still there. And I think about the ice pond and all of the campus markers that we have grown to love. So can we please keep that when we're doing this development?
Thank you. Yeah, I think I appreciate both of those comments a lot. It is a lot to imagine hundreds of units of housing. I have a hard time imagining it. That's why we have architects and designers to help us imagine it, but just to say, I can hear that. And yes, I think that those markers, what's interesting to me is like, I haven't been here as long as any of you have been here, and those are markers to me too. And the kids, frankly, like the pond for the kids is like, it's a big destination. So those things I think have a life of their own in a way, even for folks who didn't grow up here like some of you did. So I appreciate that and think that they are still markers for lots of other people too. I think that you had a question, there's somebody in the blue shirt with the green headband. Did you have a question earlier? I think we skipped over you, I'm sorry.
Quite all right. Hey everybody, I am Chris, and I graduated from Austine, and this was home. You know, this is where I always came to play the trails. So I'm just wondering, are you thinking about, with these buildings in development, are you actually going to be taking down some of the trails? Are you going to be, you know, taking over the creeks, or are you going to keep the trail system as is? Because that's a concern of mine. These trails are just amazing, and I don't want it to be built over.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. I do think that the trails are one of the best assets, and to have them open to the public and seeing people enjoy them. There are people who walk their dog here every day, no matter what the weather is. And I think, so again, that's a real part of the asset that we will absolutely keep. Does that mean that there might not be a part of a trail that has to get rerouted? Maybe, but I think the intention to have the trails in the woods to appreciate this space is absolutely something that we will honor and do. So I can say that confidently. The green trail is actually, you can't follow it anymore because that's where all the logging happened. I've been up there and tried to follow it. So we even have to reestablish some of the trails, frankly, and we will. So. Then there was another hand. Oh, yes.
Hi, I am Keith Payne. I graduated here back in 1962. I started initially in Holton Hall as my first building. This is where I was raised from a very young age. And I remember when Kroker Hall was built. And so you mentioned about potentially removing Kroker Hall, correct? I mean, if it makes sense, okay, but wow, I mean, we need to make sure we save at least the plaque that's there for posterity's sake. Because I know that we have definitely done a lot to make sure that our heritage is there. We have those time capsules, so I want to make sure that does not get lost and forgotten. And if we can put it in a museum or something like that, that would be great. Yeah, if it comes to that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Where are the time capsules? Where are the time capsules? Are they like?
There's a little placard that says 1956, and it's in that area that says a 1956 placard.
Okay.
Once
So
you go
yeah,
up to
if you walk through up the ramp, it should be right there, kind of behind that.
So it's in the building. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Good to know.
Yes.
No idea.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, and also, yeah, you can see it. It's right there. It's right. It says like 1976 or something like that. But look for the plaque of the year.
Great. Good. Rebecca.
Hello, I am Rebecca. And so for those of you who can't make it today, I just wanted to let people know we are recording this. If you have any questions or comments, what's the best way to get in touch with you, Chloe or Lisa? Who do we contact if we have questions?
Thank you. So folks can email or call. The information's on the website, but it's chloe@winstonprouty.org, lisa@winstonprouty.org. There's no wrong number or door. Somebody contacted us through Facebook Messenger. But I would say the primary person would be me or Lisa. That's your best bet. But I think anybody that got contacted would know to get you to us. So yes, people can be in touch in whatever way is easiest. Oh.
Hello, my name is Katrina Hagen. So I just have to say, I have so many memories of this place, the campus, the hill, and I feel like God has blessed us with this campus, and I don't want to be destroyed. I want to make sure it's still here for future generations. And again, I would like to avoid any traffic. I want it to be a peaceful place and make sure that's balanced out. Is that possible?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think that, I don't know all the things that are possible. I think everything's possible right now. And I think that those values of the beauty of the land and enjoying it and making sure that it will be enjoyed in the future in the way we want it to be. I think, I've thought about when Austine closed, the bank owned the land because they held the note, they held the mortgage. And they kept renting space and trying to make it work, but they had no investment in this place except to get it on to the next person. Anybody could have bought this property, theoretically, and done anything with it. And so I think as I got ready to come, to talk with you all, I realized that I hope that because we are the organization we are, who has some values around community and inclusion and diversity and want to preserve what we can. Yes, I hope we can honor that. Does that mean there won't be increased traffic someday? I can't promise that, but can I promise that we will try to do it in the most considerate way possible? Yes. So, and hearing you talk about the value, how we intersect around those values, I think is really helpful. And so, let's talk early and often and keep talking about and having a sounding board around what about this? Would this work? I really appreciate, there are some things that are so easy to do. It is easy to put up find a way to honor the history and keep the plaque. And there are benches and trees that were planted and rocks, like all of those things. Those are not going to get put in the the dump pile. Those will find a home. If they can't stay where they are right now, we will find a place for them. So that honoring of the history of this land is really important, and we will absolutely do that. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. My name is Val Hughes, and I've got two hats on. I was a student here, so I started when I was 3, and then I mainstreamed in middle school, high school, locally at the UHS. I also work for the Vermont Center for Independent Living. I'm the Deaf Independent Living Coordinator. So I just wanted to put this out there. In thinking of all this planning, and you've got a committee, can we be part of it? Can the deaf community be part of that, or even VCIL be part of that? I'm happy to talk to my boss to see if I can join in as part of that committee, because I want to make sure we're making things accessible for people in the disabled community and also the deaf community. And I don't want just a couple of units that work for those folks. I want a lot of units to work for everybody. So is it possible to have deaf senior citizens, maybe have a deaf senior citizens center or home? Because the closest deaf nursing home is in Danvers, Massachusetts, which is the New England home for the deaf. So people have to move out of Vermont if they're deaf and want a nursing home that is fully accessible. So I will give you my contact information. I'd love to talk more. Thank you.
Thank you. That is a great point, and I think that
Yes, and seconding that from Jeanette.
Okay.
Yes, on that. I love Val's idea of the deaf group home or a senior citizens home for the deaf. Because right, like she mentioned, the closest one is in Danvers. We need something in Vermont for us. We want to live and grow old here.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point too. Yes, finding ways for people who are going to be interested in being part of this. That's the partnership I'm talking about. I don't know exactly what that would look like. We're so in the planning stages, but I can imagine multiple advisory groups and multiple sounding boards, because again, we can't do it on our own. I think of us as stewards of this project and of the land. It is ours because we own it, but it's not ours. In the same way that in a capitalist society, like it's ours, but it's not. We're only here for so many years, right? So how can we set it up for success? And that requires all of us partnering and working together. And to your point, I keep thinking of universal design. This place has to work for everybody, and what works for some, probably benefits us all. So how can we make that, make that real in this project, or in thinking about the future of the campus? Yeah.
Yeah, this is Jeanette. I just want to, I'll come up. Sorry, I forgot about the camera. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, and just thinking about all these ideas and making sure it's open to, the disabled community as well as the alumni community and people that have raised their families here. Like Val said, I think that's a great idea to have some type of housing that fits everybody and be open to everybody. And I like the idea of inclusion. We need to include people, be them deaf, hard of hearing, hearing, deaf, blind, and open to the public, but maybe be considerate of others first, making sure that we have our needs met. Because again, like I said, the 100 units, it does feel like a lot. If we can keep it to 50, I don't know, but I just want to reiterate that. I do worry about the traffic, not just cars, but people traffic, and how that could potentially destroy the campus. And I know that Katrina was really concerned, right? I forget your name, I'm sorry. Is it Katrina?
It was yes. Katrina.
I know that Katrina talked about that. And yeah, for posterity's sake, let's make sure we're keeping the earth the way it should be.
Yeah.
And yeah, I appreciate all the comments. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Mike Carter. I graduated here, and this was like a second home to me. It really has been. A couple of things I wanted to talk about. Are you going to keep the disc golf course? that's on campus?
We can, it doesn't get used a ton because the Rotary built one at Living Memorial.
Oh, right, okay, okay.
But the recreation part of the vision is very real. So indoor and outdoor recreation, the trails, disc golf, and whatever that looks like, that is definitely included in the vision.
Okay, great. My other question is, I mean, I have to say, in looking at the ideas, it's nice to see what's possible. Could we add something like Airbnb?
Mm-hmm.
Is that feasible? Because it's a beautiful campus, great views, might draw some people, just an idea.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. A lot of the students who did projects, that was included in their design. That yes, housing, but people are going to want to come here. There's an interesting project in northern Vermont. It's a mountain biking trail place, and so there are people here in this town who want folks to be able to get here on the train with their bikes and then bike all over and have a place to stay. And so that, that's one example of people who are like, yes, we need these kinds of Airbnbs and cabins and places that people can just come visit and enjoy this land too, not just live here. So yes, thank you for that. Yeah, right.
Hello again, still Nicholas. So we know Vermont is really famous for keeping things green, keeping things natural, preserving what we have around us, and incorporating buildings into the landscape. I would like to see that happen here as you're developing. And also, can we preserve, how do I phrase it? Like, can we, for tourism, I want to make sure we also think about people coming, but people staying. Can we keep the land as it is? Can we help farms? Can we help local economy? And thinking about the building architecture, there is a deaf perspective on that. So can we get deaf perspectives on the architecture design to make sure it's open concept, that hallways are wide enough so people can walk side by side and sign together? So if you're planning for elevators, could it have a mirror inside and out so we can see all the way around us? We are visually attuned. And so there is so much that deaf people contribute to society. We call it deaf gain. And you might not realize how much there's out there. So please ask us our perspective. We can certainly help you with that universal design.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And again, I feel really fortunate to have met an architect who is deaf, and he works at an organization called Mass Design. It's in Boston. We've had one meeting. He came in and he actually came and picked up some chairs.
Can you share his name?
His name is Jeff Mansfield, and I can send the website.
Okay.
So he set up an exhibit for, I can't remember the title of it, and I can share it too, but he got chairs from all the institutions in New England to create a design around sort of deaf spaces and honoring them and what that looks like. So I think it's up through, he put it up in late April, and I think it's out in Lawrence, Massachusetts, maybe. So just to your point, it makes his work, I think, or having, folks with what people say lived experience, I don't really like that phrase, but is really important. So I appreciate you elevating that. And I'm actually really excited, and I wish I'd thought to invite Jeff today, because it would be really great for him to hear this, and I will send him the video so that he can be connected and hear what you have to say. And I think maybe, Val, to your point, how to bring people together in that advisory capacity to be part of the project. I think that I could see a role for him to help with that as well. So yes, thank you. Yes. We're good. No, you're fine. We're good.
All right. Hello, everybody. I am Shalene, and I'm the class of 2000. So this was my first home. Obviously, it's amazing. At the same time, I have worked for Bob Johnson on the Delta campus. So I'm well versed with that. I work for Omega Optics. I think they just changed their name to something else. But anyway, I worked there for about 9 years. And I also rented one of their Delta campus homes for 5.5 years.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm well connected and very familiar with Bob Johnson and his vision. And he loves nature. It is his biggest priority. He loves to make sure the trails are there. He always talked about having that trail opened up between Delta and this campus. And disc golfing was super popular. So yeah, I think we can have a nice blend. I think it's a great idea to use the land that way. And as Nick just mentioned, right, having deaf people involved. There are a lot of folks that Bob Johnson knows from the deaf community. And so we can invite some people who have worked in architecture, who are deaf, to make sure that we're part of this and can design it as well as possible. So I'm looking forward to seeing how things pan up. Best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you've gone a couple times, so one more.
So I'd like to know about the gym that's currently here. I know in the wintertime a lot of people use it for their own fitness and trying to get some good exercise and basketball. So can we keep the gym at the very least? And the trails, obviously people have talked about that. I know there's one bridge that's actually come down, so it's hard to cross over. We should probably look into that. And also, can we have like trail markers that talk about the trail, so like an interpretive trail, so to speak. That would be great for kids and adults alike.
Yeah, if the, yes, the gym is used by a lot of people. You can rent it if you want, basketball, pickleball, people on campus. So if for some reason the gym isn't in that building, there will be a gym somewhere. I feel confident just given what we know the needs of the community are. So indoor recreation.
Thank you.
Yeah. And again, yes, with the trails and all, I think there's lots of opportunity for all of these things. Couple more, and you haven't spoken yet, so.
Hi everybody. I am Donna Pine. So, I am a licensed nurse in Massachusetts, an RN, and I've been doing that for multiple years. So I came to Vermont, and I also worked in New Hampshire. I also worked in Maine, and thinking about a nursing home, what a great idea, because we have to think about what's going to be the best. 500 units? I'm not so sure. I don't think that that's going to be the best idea. And thinking about funding, you probably get more from smaller units and having a nursing home for deaf folks that serves a greater population that can draw from New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Vermont. So something to think about. Right now, as everybody's mentioned, there's only Danvers, New England Home for the Deaf. So we need something else. I think you should really consider this seriously. I think it would benefit everybody. And so do some research, see what's possible, and I think based on the pricing of nursing homes now, you would have a good funding source. And this would actually help you in the long run, because if you want to build more units down the road, if you start with a nursing home, you'll have that funding source to add on later. And then you'd have more people who could live here, and the campus could survive. And I think the campus, you have to be mindful not to make it too busy, but it would be like a little small, tiny village, or a tiny city, so to speak. So I think it's really good to think about that, get the nursing home up and running, and then go to bigger units. Because right now, there's not a lot of people out there that have an option as they're getting older. A lot of us are getting older. We were raised here. We wouldn't mind coming back here for the end of our lives. So I think it's a wise suggestion, and I hope you consider it. And think about who you want to serve ideally, and not just housing, but really housing as we get older. Because it has been so tricky. Finding places, finding units, finding good care. It's not like people in the majority culture who are hearing who can have their fair share of options. We don't have those options as the deaf community. We're all getting older. That is a fact. So how do we preserve our community and support each other as we get older? And I think there's so many deaf people that would love to come here. To have us placed in nursing homes where people are not using American Sign Language and visual language, we are shut out. So if we had a place that really catered to us, for us, by us, it would be phenomenal. And I think it would attract a lot of people, again, as I mentioned, from surrounding states, from other deaf communities. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. I will share, and we have gotten some emails about that idea. And I think what I really want to explore more too is how can we have aging in place work versus nursing homes? I'll just offer that. How can we make it that, unless we can, maybe not calling it a nursing home would be the thing to do, because people get isolated. When you put a bunch of people in one place who have high needs and you have whatever nursing ratio you have, I worry about the quality that you're able to provide. And so my vision for aging in place would be, how do we create housing that does exactly what you're doing but isn't like a nursing home? So I'm agreeing with the concept of being able to create a place that creates an option, because you don't have there aren't other options. There's one in Danvers, and what I'm hearing, that's it. How can we do that? Maybe not in the typical bricks and mortar nursing home way. Does that make sense? Just like, yeah, so. And actually, I think we need to, I'm realizing that more dancers are coming.
Comment to that. Yeah, I know a lot of people here, we've thought about this, and we've seen firsthand what it's like for our groups to get older. And so there is a big need. So again, yes, including some options about how to get older, but also thinking about your entity and how to make money to make sure you can survive and thrive. Again, coming back to that idea of 300 to 500 units, I'm not sure it's really the best fit or the best bang for your buck. So, yeah, again, if it could be that aging in place or some place where we can come to live and it's smaller units, then I think you would really make an impact and have a lot of people here without too much traffic. And making sure we're using resources as wisely as possible. Does that make sense? Because thinking about Brattleboro in particular, we have to be mindful of how we're going to develop the community, be mindful of the sewer and the water and the permitting to make sure it really does work well for everybody. So I say start small and see how that goes and build from there.
Thank you. Any other pressing questions that anybody who
I just
hasn't?
want to make a really quick point here.
Is there anybody who hasn't spoken who wants to? Okay.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to add one other thing. So I know that we have to wrap up because other people need to come in. So first of all, thank you for bringing us on board. And like Donna said, yeah, keep it small. I agree with that. 100 units maybe at max. I do get concerned about how it's going to impact the land and the people and the traffic. So yeah, it just makes me nervous to go too big too fast. So I think, take things slow. First things come first. Make sure the community of deaf people has their needs met, the disabled community has their needs met, and then expand to the greater public. And again, having that deaf home. I mean, yeah, nursing home, I think you're right. Let's call it a deaf home because that would be ideal. And this is a perfect campus for it. I think that would really help preserve not only the community, but the campus. And people would want to come back. Oh, and I should just say one other thing. Who was it that made a comment? It struck in my mind. Is Kathy not here? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you, Kathleen. My apologies. You're way in the back. So I know you talked about the museum. Is that going to stay? Because I know we have it, and I was a little surprised that we do have it here. So if the museum's going to stay, that's great news for us.
Yeah.
I think it's really important that it stays here.
It will stay
Yeah,
here.
I'd love to know. I mean, I've heard rumors that it might move or it's not going to be here. And I thought it was going to relocate from Holton Hall to here, which I think it did, into Vermont Hall. So that's good. And I understand that had to happen. But I want to make sure that it is still here.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
And it will
great.
stay.
Yeah, and so everything that's there will stay here. Because I definitely heard some people in the community saying, well, things have been taken out of closets, there might be some things that aren't there. So I want to make sure that everything that really has been ours is still ours in the museum, and I don't want things left in a closet or thrown out. So is there anything that's gone unnoticed or thrown away?
There is a lot of stuff here. We got all the stuff, and what was in the museum is in the museum. What I can think of that would need to be preserved is the gym. The stuff in the gym is like its own museum. So, but other than that, I think everything else has been.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And so one other quick question, Chloe.
Yes.
Just real quick. So again, just to kind of dispel any rumors, the community wants to know, at least the alumni in particular, did you take anything and throw out any artifacts from the museum?
No, the
Okay,
museum has been
good,
left in the
good.
hands of the people running the museum.
Okay, thank God. Okay, great. And who is the person in charge of the museum? That would be Kathleen. Okay, great, thank you. I just want to make sure, because someone said, oh, they took stuff and threw it out. Okay, great, that's good to know. I appreciate that. Thank you for your honesty, and it's such a treasure, so I want to keep it there. Thank you.
So yes, we need to wrap up, and I want to say thank you again for coming, and I assume that we will keep talking. So I hope to see many of you and others come and be part of what we want to do here. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Chloe. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes.